Bene, buonasera, buonasera, benvenuti a questo incontro, a questo meeting. Guardate, ci sono i nostri pensieri, le nostre ipotesi.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are here to share our concerns on what the Pope defines as a third world war in pieces. Anxieties and facts. What's going on? And which usually happen whenever they prefer, or wherever they prefer. And sometimes these seem to be negligible facts. They might seem the facts, the peripheries, happening in places which have nothing to do with what is happening around them. Indeed, this is something which can change what's going on. So we are here today to talk about one of these facts, something which is happening, and you see evidence of that in these days. We have an exhibition on this event. It's something very simple, little, but I'm sure you'll appreciate its importance. I invite you to visit the exhibition in Pavilion C1. And we'll hear of that from the words of the protagonists, those who conceived that initiative. We have the guys of the SWAP group, an acronym which stands for Share with All People, an idea born at the Catholic University in Milan. The majority of these students were Muslim, simply at the beginning, impressed by what was happening in their country of origin. So they joined forces trying to understand what has happened, and they will tell us what they have done. And the gentlemen here will tell us their impressions on this idea. They are Mario Gatti, to my left, director of the Catholic University, headquarters in Milan. Let's join hands to welcome him. And someone who is a good friend of the meeting, Wael Farouq. He is a regular visitor at the meeting, but this is the first time he will address you in Italian. And you realize that his Italian is indeed much better than mine. We had invited also another distinguished guest, the former president of Al-Azhar University, which is the most important university of Egypt. Unfortunately, he did not come. Indeed, he sent a message. He apologizes for not being at the meeting. He was very interested in attending. In the name of God, the Almighty and the Compassionate, may peace descend on all of you. I wrote this message to apologize for not attending the meeting 2014 because of sudden problems in Cairo. I'm really sorry not being able to attend this edition of the meeting. I know it's grand and interesting, and indeed I had wished very much to attend the meeting for the beautiful things which happen there. I wish you all success, and I thank you very much for inviting me in a very hospitable place like a meeting is. Hoşmat ettet former president of Al-Azhar University. Let's join hands for him. He's a great personality. Of the intellectual world of Islam. So let's give the floor to the students who will tell us how this initiative was born, what the SWAP group is, and how is the exhibition organized, showing that values can turn to reality. So I'd like to invite them. First one is Mina. Let's join hands. Was that for me? First of all, I'd like to thank you at the beginning on behalf of the whole SWAP group. Being here is a great achievement for the group. 4 months ago, the group did not exist. So thank you very much, Mrs. Emilia, Alessandra, Luigi, Manuela, everyone. The Catholic University of Milan and the person of Dean Mario Gatti, the Cultural Center of Milan, Florence, and you. Thank you very much for being here. Allow me just a few minutes to tell you how the SWAP idea was born, which stands for share, exchange, and we used the SWAP acronym to indicate share with all people and the importance of exchanging ideas. SWAP was born in 2012 with the name Encounter Community, an awful name selected by Professor Farouq, and so we decided to change the name. That's why, that's how SWAP was born. It originally came from the idea of some Muslim students studying at the university, the Catholic of the University of Milan, who wanted to show the suffering of the Christian population in our countries. Then we joined forces. I'm Christian, I have a beard, but I'm a Christian. So we joined the group to analyze the Egyptian revolution with the eyes of human beings. So, you'll see that at the exhibition. You'll realize that we don't even mention politics or religion in the exhibition. So we simply concentrated on the human beings, on the values, on people who really enshrine human values. So confronted with such an historical events, you might have different political stances and have different religious beliefs, but we all have a heart as human beings. So in the exhibition we speak of examples of living together with the event of the Virgin Mary, then the Ramadan, and we indeed show how Christians and Muslims use these events to join, not to as a form of battle. Then there are 6 stories of 6 important people. We had many martyrs, the large majority of them were very young, but the 6 we selected were selected because of their feeling of responsibility for all their fellow citizens. Now the floor to Marina and Monica, are much more brilliant than I am.
Intanto buonasera a tutti e grazie di essere.
Hello, good evening everybody. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you for allowing us to follow our mission, that is sharing something we have experienced with you. What we have experienced has made us more mature and has given a sense to our presence in the world here. Well, initially we did not understand why we were invited here to the meeting and why you wanted our exhibition so much. But then reading the title of the meeting, which is something that Pope Francis repeats all the time, go to the ends, go towards the others. We understood that this is the core of our experience. In spite of our differences, or maybe because of our differences, we were sort of magnetically attracted to each other. Initially, we used to think the way the society does, that is, that you can live together well only if you are the same, because differences sometimes may create pretexts for clashes or difficulties. Yet, our differences, our peculiarities made this exhibition possible. Our differences are the very reason of our growth. And this has been so since the creation, the time of creation, because when God created the world, immediately after said that that was a good thing. So he created light and saw that it was a good thing. Then he created the trees, the plants, the fish, and said that it was a good thing. Then when he created man, he said that it was not good for man to be alone. You know, it is as if men were created perfectly, but not enough for themselves. In fact, God created a companion for man, someone who was different and complementary at the same time to be able to achieve a certain target. We were able to make this exhibition together. If Muslims or Copts had done it alone, it would not have been possible. It was only possible because we shared the same experience. We were together, and I think that many achievements in life are possible only if different people work together to cooperate. This allows you to see reality from different perspectives and to see reality as it really is. This is only possible if you do this all together. We all have a goal in life. God has never created something by chance, and we're all asked to find our goal. Similarly to the characters of our exhibition, and I hope you'll visit the exhibition, you know, every character of the exhibition has a sense in life, something to fight for and something to sacrifice their own life for, not for an immediate profit, but to share the good together. You know, these are people who passed away, but the people who had a chance to meet them when they were alive have got something from them. This is something we have experienced firsthand. In preparing the exhibition and preparing other activities, we have really experienced all this firsthand. And now I'd give the floor to Monica to explain to you what we have done. Thank you. Here I am. I would like to sort of tell you about the end of our pathway. As Mina and Marina said, we tried to focus on what we thought was worth focusing on. We focus on the true nature and the very nature of the human being. We tried to leave room to the value of people who have lived through an important experience, and this reflected in our group, in our team. The feeling of being united is something we have felt very strongly. The context was the context of Egypt. Most of us are of Egyptian origin, so this touched us very deeply. What is important is the value of people over and above certain labels, certain categories. For example, religion, political ideas, or the color of your skin. There are values which belong to the human being as such, and these values are universal values. You find them in the context of Egypt in our case, but you may find them anywhere. We have had a very deep experience and shared it with others. We hope that this strong message on the meaning of our existence as human beings comes across. We are surrounded by people who are not necessarily the same as we are, and we have to live with them. This is the message that we would like to share with the others. What impressed us, and this is something that people that visited the exhibit told us, was to see how people were surprised in the face of certain acts of friendship and courage. That is, some of the values we have considered in the exhibition. We have asked ourselves, such human things, how can they generate so much surprise? Why are they considered as rare acts in the course of the history of mankind? Instead, it should perhaps be more negative act arising surprise and astonishment. We have thought that maybe we can disseminate this awareness, the awareness we have collected in this process and pathway, which has led to the discovery of ourselves. There are things that you can't take for granted. Imagine, for example, what is happening in the rest of the world, or think of what is happening in the rest of the world, where the dignity of people tends to be forgotten in favor of the labels that you attach to a certain individual without trying to look at the person itself. We had an opportunity to meet some kids from Syria and Palestine, that is, areas experiencing difficulties at the moment. And we also saw some mistrust, even on the part of children that are usually innocent. Very often these kids were surprised because they heard Christians speak Arabic. They had never seen something like this, and they were surprised to see Christians helping them together with our friends who are Muslims. The surprising, the astonishing thing is that it took us a very short time to break this mistrust among kids and generate a relationship of friendship and love, trying to give them a lot of affection and love, especially because they come from very difficult backgrounds. They saw in us supporting people. They called us aunties. they felt we were close to them because we were treating them with affection, and we thought that the main thing is actually an act of love. You need to look at people through the eyes of love, loving your neighbors, loving the others, even if different from you. People want us to believe that there are religious barriers and ideological barriers. Instead, what is thought to be a barrier is a way to reach an agreement and strong unity. Thank you very much. All these facts took place at the Catholic University in Milan. Mario Gatti is the director of this university. I'd like to ask you, Mr. Gatti, what was the meaning to you and to your university to see such a cooperation? Thank you very much for your question, and I hope I can answer this question, especially as far as I was able to see. People came to us and asked for the possibility to organize an exhibition. You know, I got involved. We tried. They started out. They involved many more people, also from other universities. Some graduates came back to the university to help them organize this exhibition. Wael is a professor. I'm more practical. He took care of the cultural part. We put this exhibition together and offered it to the university. All these students involved discovered that there were many Egyptian students in the university. I discovered this myself. The group met very often. Others joined in from other universities, also people who had already graduated in our university or from our university. You know, I can tell you more episodes, but you know, there are some teachers who accept the Syrian refugees at the Central Railway Station. So they were put in contact with the students. Some speak Arabic, so they went to the railway station to help them and support them. And relations started to be established. It was all about giving credit to students who had something to say. They were not simply there to learn at our university, but also to teach us lessons. The exhibition was visited by many people. The professors were also invited. We officially opened the exhibition with 400 participants. It was also presented in Florence. In Milan, we had the councillor coming, etc. But above all, the parents of these students came, and I was impressed by this. One of these parents said it was a very good day for him because he told me, without denying her identity, the culture she belongs to, my daughter, for the first time, showed it to all the others, so she didn't have to really give up her citizenship or nationality. You know, the fact that within a university you can express your personality and grow is a great way of congratulating a university, and I was happy because of this. If you go to the exhibition, the nicest thing is not so much the boards, but what I discovered was that there were people explaining things. They gathered to explain the truth and searching for the truth. We as adults have the impression that you can't do something like this. Instead, I met people who were searching for truth, for their own truth, and they gathered independently of their origins, independently of their past and backgrounds. They made an exhibition together showing that you can join forces trying to grasp truth. And I also discovered that you have to really give value to students. In all universities you have students groups and also small fund allocations for the support of these groups. But really no one believes that students or people can gather for purposes other than a discipline or a certain theme. Instead, it is possible for students to join forces and propose their pathway of experience to all the others. So an experience, an encounter was proposed at our university. Indeed, we didn't even know that we had Islamic students enrolled in our university. And that in a Catholic university, a parent could state that his daughter had discovered her citizenship and nationality was a great source of happiness to me. And I hope that our university has rediscovered the vocation and the purpose of a university. Students, professors and other staff visiting the exhibition probably understood that in university we're not only there to train people and good citizens, but also to educate people. And I think this is the biggest asset linked to this exhibition. Well, it's not psychological introspection, but a true cultural activity. These people gathered independently of their origins. These days, if people had attended the swap group, they would have less problems in establishing a dialogue among themselves. Sometimes, you tend to have the idea that the intercultural dialogue is a process of ideas, the ability of working out new theories or ideas. Instead, this group developed within our university was a pioneer in developing an interfaith or interreligious group. Well, it's actually not an interreligious group, but it's a group of people wishing to carry out certain activities together. For example, the exhibition on Egypt or something else. Sometimes books are written on the ability to establish a dialogue, on the ability to absorb other cultures within the Italian cultures. But spending some hours with them, I discovered that the theme of interfaith dialogue is a hoax. And I also discovered that you don't only have the problem of seeing the world from just one perspective. If you go to the exhibit, you will see that the best thing is not the boards, but the people explaining. The intercultural problem, the problem of bringing a country's culture into another country's culture, is not there anymore. I hope that visiting this exhibition, you will also understand how the Christian and Muslim cultures are interconnected in some countries. There's a sentence of one of Farouq's friends who was asked, what is it that you miss more of Egypt? He said Ramadan, and Farouq was quite impressed. Then it was discovered that in the neighborhood where this person was raised, it's quite normal, and it's part of the culture of activities. There are also 2 nice cartoons in the exhibit. I was horrified. I thought, maybe the police comes to me because of these cartoons, but then I calmed them down. Those cartoons are really beautiful. What I learned, and I hope the university learned it too, that there are many stereotypes in speaking of interreligious dialogue, and the exhibit will show you why. The society is also full of these stereotypes. The task of the university is to overcome the idea of the students as customers and payers, the idea of students as users of services or teachings. Instead, you can still have a human experience within the university. You have to be able to give value to those that have something to say, independently of the risks that are involved. Studying at university doesn't mean that you follow a good degree course. It's not just about training good professionals. I think that creating a great human personality is also very important. The university system is a higher education system, and I hope we continue using this expression also in the future. These students told me people speak a lot of Egypt. Then I asked them, what do you think about this and that? They said, we can speak of the Egyptian revolution, speaking of people, of their desires, and not of politics. Well, I was not fully convinced of this. I was taking a risk, but that's true. They spoke of one of the most political events in Egypt's history in the past few years without really taking a political position, but simply searching for truth. In fact, they took a radical position, if you like, and I discovered that there is a sentence which is very true. That is, what moves the forces of history is what moves the force of the individual. And talking about political desire to them meant speaking of young people similar to them who were searching for truth. And this is clear from the exhibition. Finally, if we could give value to these experiences within the university world, if we were able to believe that people can get together trying to find good proposals for their lives, the university can certainly serve its purpose much better. When I attended university, the problem was that the universities were considered as exam factories, but now the students are like chicken in classrooms. You know, every morning I go out to work in the idea that I want to leave some traces behind in my job. And once again, there are stereotypes when we talk about dialogue, and this is witnessed by this exhibition. At the official opening, all the families of these students participated. They were involved. They saw where their children were studying. The title of the meeting helped me reflect on this. We have to avoid the creation of outskirts and peripheries where migrants are usually a problem. They are not well adapted to the rest of society. Instead, all the stereotypes were lacking when talking to these students. I didn't know whether I was talking to a first-generation migrant or not. I simply saw students and young people wanting to understand each other, wanting to spend time together, wanting to love each other. I rarely saw this before. I was really happy to help them. Unconsciously, they also helped me. And I hope they helped our university understand what interfaith dialogue means, what giving adequate value to the students means, and also discovering that in our university we have Muslim students enrolled is something nice, and they also attend our compulsory theology courses. So I'd like to thank them, and I hope that our university has understood how important the students' activities are for the purpose of educating people. Thank you very much.
Adesso Wael.
Now the floor to Wael Farouq, who is teaching Arabic. So what have you discovered while working with these students? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to read, and I hope you won't suffer too much. There are people who left their body hanging on a cross and raised to heaven. They left the heart in their homes and they have gone. Those who have decided to be thirsty, hungry, to cry, and they've flown away. All these people could have avoided those sufferings. They simply had to say that they were giving up their faith and they would have had their lives saved. But they didn't. They were forced to select, and they did make their choices. They rejected life by selecting eternity. They rejected falsity by choosing truth. They offered to all believers their witness of their suffering, demonstrating that life without faith is not worth living. In the time of images and the doubt of nihilism, they decided to enshrine certainty. What's going on in Iraq, Syria, and the Holy Land is not a crime where the protagonists are assassins. It's a time of heroes where the protagonists are hundreds of thousands of men in the street, people like me and you. Hundreds of thousands of people who have chosen to leave all their possessions because they don't want to give up to the freedom of their spirits. Hundreds of thousands of people like me and you who demonstrated that the human being is much stronger than the power. This is the reality. This is why we have hopes. What happened in these countries is not a tragedy. It's a choice supported by the will of human beings. And I'd like to tell Pope Francis that myself and millions of Muslims pray together with him because we do believe that God is just and Almighty, who loves his sons and daughters, and he will listen to our prayers and he will respond. We will not support those who want to simply take revenge. We will defend those people who have lost their lives to preserve their faith. We will not give up our faith in peace. We will not give up our faith and love. So the experience of the swap group, which has been presented today, is bearing witness of this faith. The curiosity and the desire to be freed from stereotypes have been the starting point for these students. Meeting the other has been the way, bearing witness of freedom, friendship, living together, and love. That was their own choice. Those who has visited the swap exhibition, when values take life, could find truth and has a question. How comes that so young persons have understood a reality which is dominated by political conflicts, social and religious divisions, by the mutual insults and the appeals to violence? How could have they been able to find a certainty around which everybody joined forces at a time of doubts and mistrust in the others are dominating the vision and the actions of everyone? Maybe because they are idealist, or maybe they are neutral, but their words are really enthusiastic and they have a trust in the future. They do believe in the future, and they demonstrate that they are part of the future, and they do believe that the conditions in reality cannot change the eternal desire for freedom on part of human beings. So human truth is within us, and this is the only way which can trigger change in the reality. A change which should be based on human experience to offer its own truth, because a truth without human experience, without the meaning of human being, without the presence of human beings, is a false truth. Impartial truths are not part of human beings. There are no human values. There could be no human values if they don't believe in truth. The truth is not truth if it is not full of body. Every person is a truth, and every truth is a person. As it was the case for the young persons of the Egyptian revolution, swap students have no ideology. And when I say ideology, I don't mean a precise political theory, for anything can turn into an ideology, i.e., religion, science, work. Ideology is only a prison made of sublime values, noble sacrifices, and great hopes, but which have nothing to do and are not connected with persons. Any good, when it becomes more important than a person, is no longer a good. Without persons, there could be no goods. There is no good for which one could die or kill, for good is a way and a way of living. An ideological person is a prisoner fighting to become the owner of the prison. Ideology is a prison, and the only key to open that prison is love, which is at the center of the world, and the center of the world is the human person. For that reason, the first action of our group was putting people at the center. Normal persons, not politicians, not scientists, not show persons. Normal persons who could find the strength to get close to suffering and the ability to enshrine human values.
Daniel, un ragazzo cristiano, povero, di modesta...
People like Mina Daniel, a Christian boy coming from a poor family. Mina could not attend the revolution by bearing on the shoulders the cross of persecution. He sung freedom and love. He moved easily in all the corners of the square by looking everyone in the eyes and smiling at them. He was a friend of Marxists and Salafists. So when he fell as a martyr, his face was on all flanks of the revolution, which were flanked for freedom. His short life was evidence that was an evidence that brought hundreds of thousands of young persons of the Constitution Party to elect as a president for the first time in Egyptian history a Christian woman. Maybe this is meaningless. Maybe this is meaningless in a society which has the cult of power and which has a history based on the exchanges of power. But this is our history, and we think that this is the tradition we belong to anytime we experience love and friendship. You might think that the strength of a person, the power of a person, needs to have exceptional conditions to emerge, but this is not true. I heard the story of a Catholic student who was very religious, who had a very dear friend, and he shared anything with her. They used to have a lunch together, they studied and they prayed together. One day, the girl visited him, and she told him that she was embarrassed because she was hiding something to him, and she told him that she was lesbian, and she was afraid that he could get angry at her, interrupting any form of relationship, or could have tried to put her on the right way. The answer was unexpected. He said, "How comes? But are you only that?" So, are you only that? So, in the midst of the terrible times we are living today, the hysteric attitude of homomanic and homophobia on the other, friendship is still possible. It can break down the barriers which surround us and within which we enclose ourselves and the others. There is a proverb saying that love is blind because it cannot see the defects of others. I would rather say that love is understanding because we are able to see what's behind. For that reason, any political, religious, or cultural proposal which is not based on love and which cannot use love as a tool to see the beauty and the grandness of another will always end up into being an ideology which is only able to build barriers. SWAP is there to build bridges and not barriers. We have determined not to act against evil but in favor of good. That's why we have selected testimony as a way and tool to achieve that. This group was born with a different name, as Mina said. The name was Encounter because that got started from an encounter here at the meeting in Rimini, provoked by curiosity for the meeting in Cairo. And my dear young friends asked me to change the name because they wanted a name which had a much younger appearance. So I suggested other names, they were all ignored, and they selected SWAP, which is the acronym, the English acronym for share with all people, and in English it means exchange. So share with all people is very nice. At the beginning, I was in two minds on that name. On the one hand, I was not happy because I am no longer a young person. But on the other, I was really very happy because I realized that something which was born as an encounter spurred by curiosity had come of age and had turned in the ability of assessing and desiring to witness that beauty and good are always around us. So this testimony, which has taken shape in the exhibition that we are proposing at the meeting this year, is not only in the hands of this group of wonderful students. It is also part of the university, here represented by Dr. Gatti. It belongs to the fathers and the mothers of these students, and also to Orthodox, Catholic, Protestant priests, to Muslim friends. All these friends have encouraged us a lot. But this diversity and the pluralism within the SWAP group, and something which is typical of the environment where that was incubated, indeed represent an extremely important contribution for the future of the Italian society. There is no European big city today which has no parallel society in which we have the minorities of migrants up to the fourth generation, we are not really able to meet the others. So the fast and swift attempts to integrate the migrants in their new society only made them invisible in the public space, with lots of cultural and religious barriers which are not to be seen. As a consequence, the rooting of the idea of pluralism changes the public space from a melting pot where the different cultural components of the European society encounter and interact, into borders which really separate the different components, because this is apparently the only way to preserve the traditions. So the richness of swap experience is the outcome of an education process in which traditions are experienced, i.e. they are replicated or recreated in a different way. As Goethe said, to possess what you inherit from your fathers, you should be able to deserve it again, unquote. In fact, education is the interaction with traditions. It is an exercise to discover your identity and to construct your personality, for the critical knowledge of the self and of the world is something which protects and prevents traditions from turning into cliches of models empty of any meaning, or more precisely into stereotypes. The experience swap, which is based on the central law of people, on the testimony of God, and the interaction with traditions in the framework of a relationship with the others, is a great opportunity to be freed not only from the clash among stereotypes, but also from the dialogue among stereotypes. So what we see today is a step forward to the transition from integration to interaction, which undoubtedly will open up new horizons for a better future. Educating does not only mean training respectable people with the technical skills to respond to the labor market needs. Most importantly, it means forming persons who can see and discover what is good and what is beautiful in the others. People for whom knowledge, whatever it is not an enclosure into which they could close their consciences. We want people full of curiosity, able to be stunned and to create, because otherwise this freedom of which we speak a lot is just a false freedom. We in the SWAP group do not recognize the term VIP, i.e. a very important person. We don't like that, because for us every person is extremely important. Every person is very important. For that reason, I invite all the very important people here to come and visit our exhibition and experience what we experienced together. Thank you.
grazie a voi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Farouq. Thank you very much, Mr. Gatti. Thank you from the SWAP group. You don't like that I pronounce it swap, you say it swap. As I told you, his Italian is much better than my Italian and my English. Thank you very much, because I'm really proud of that, because things like this demonstrate that things are possible. I mean, dialect is not an abstract term. So for dialogue, it's possible to happen. So it's possible to have people coming from different experiences joining forces. That has happened, and that is showing the way. It's like the Aleppo's wells mentioned by Father Pizzaballa, if you attended that meeting. That shows that it is possible that Muslim students join forces with Copt students, and indeed you'll see the names of Catholic students and so on, and so that means that things can happen. Allow me to say a few things. How is it possible that things like that are happening in a place which where that seems impossible? So that it's the question asked by the Pope. What are you looking for? What were these students looking for? What are you looking for? And they clearly showed tonight what they are looking for. And you'll see that at the exhibition, the truth of themselves. They were looking for the human nature of themselves, the loyalty with their need to be happy, loyalty to their hearts. So if this is the starting point, everything can become possible. A second point, and this is not over-sentimental, being loyal to the desire for happiness. Well, that's a way to interpret reality as it really is. So it helps you understand what is key, and understanding what is key is good to have a better understanding. It's not an issue of sentiments, as Wahid said. If you visit the exhibition, you'll see that there are things which will help you to understand what's going on in Egypt, more than many other political analyses made. So it's not always sentimental. It's something which helps you to understand. Loving means understanding, as Farouq said. Then we now better understand why peripheries or the ends of the world are so important. If we look at the world from the ends, you can better understand the world. Because that's a way of understanding what are the methods used by God. When faced with a terrible tragedy in the Middle East, things might seem trivial, might seem to be nothing or peripheral, as it were. They are real. If we are loyal with that approach and the experience we are doing here today, how many of us going home tonight are not reminded that it is possible to have an additional hope by listening to their narration, realizing that being united is possible? Well, that is a way to cherish our hopes. So if we go home after the story of the initiative of the people of the swap, we have to admit that hope is back. So what might seem trivial is the thing which enables us to make the great change. As Father Pizzaballa said, it's things like this which enable us to raise our eyes. to look for a brighter future. And this is the only way the values become life. And so this is the way the world can be changed. So I invite you all to visit the exhibition and please experience the Rimini meeting by asking ourselves, what are you looking for, as the Pope says. Thank you very much and good night.